In today's mental health check, we all have our own way of communicating. Maybe you are the soft-spoken type and you prefer not to make waves. Maybe you're long-winded, or perhaps you tend to be a bit more assertive and direct. How others perceive our words depends on what we say and also how we say it. Sometimes being direct can be misconstrued as rudeness. Joining us now, family and clinical psychologist Jennifer Hartstein. Thank you so much for being with us.
Thanks for having me.
So why is it that sometimes just being a straight shooter, being direct, can be perceived as also being rude?
Right. So we aren't taking into account the receiver's emotional state, right? So my just kind of telling you what it is, being straightforward, being kind of a direct shooter, is often uncomfortable for somebody who maybe isn't used to that, doesn't know how to navigate it, what's their own vulnerability in that place. And we have to think about what are the differences between being direct and being rude, right? When I'm being direct, I'm to the point, I'm not sugarcoating, I'm just saying it like it is, but I'm not being disrespectful. Whereas when we're rude, there is an element of being disrespectful or condescending, kind of with intention. And I think that's a big difference.
Can you give us some examples of direct comments that could be misconstrued as being rude?
Sure, so if you were to say to me, hey, do you like my outfit? Maybe I just go, yeah, I think I've seen you in better. Direct. You could see it as rude, but you asked me for my opinion, and I'm giving you my opinion, right? Could I maybe soften the edges of that a little bit and say, you know, how do you like it, right? Now I have taken it and put it back on you, so I am recognizing that you have a feeling about it. Or I might be like, oh, it's nice, and I think I've seen you in better, so I'm giving a little validation and a little bit of feedback. But I think that's a big one for most of us, is I'm asking you for an opinion, but I don't want you to give me the direct answer on that. And then that's now we have conflict where there didn't need to be any.
And I appreciate that you're hitting on both emotion and expectation. And I have found it can differ for men and women who gets to be direct. Can you talk about that?
Oh, yes, it does. So we think about the stereotype of an aggressive woman, and I think most of the time that's just someone who isn't afraid to speak their mind, isn't afraid to take a stand, isn't afraid to be direct. Men get a pass on that. Women need to really soften the edges too much. We often start with, I'm sorry to bother you, I'm sorry to say this way, whereas men don't have to do that, right? Women over-apologize. It's seen as leadership. And so assertiveness is seen as bad. And I think especially for women of color, there's a tone policing in that we have to really get over, because I am allowed to tell you what I think and not always have to worry about how you feel.
Right, or if I'm saying it with a smile, right? There are lots of layers there. How can we, though, be direct and assertive without coming off as rude? Are there tools we can use given all the environmental factors you're talking about?
Yes, it really starts with I statements, right? I feel, I think, own it for yourself, which is really important. Try to take the emotion out of it, sticking to the facts, which is always helpful. Don't be insulting. And we want to be considerate, right? If I know you are in a vulnerable place, I'm going to be careful about what I say and how I say it. And I think that's really important.
I love that mindfulness, but also we got to be mindful. Sometimes people are being rude. So what do we do about that?
So if someone is being rude, and listen, there are a lot of rude people, and especially in this age of social media where everybody thinks they can just say what they want. So if you're being rude, I have every right to come back at you and say, hey, you cannot talk to me that way, and set a boundary and create the space that makes it acceptable communication. So I'm going to set a boundary. I'm going to be polite. I am not going to sink to your level.
Oh, you're saying be polite in the face of rudeness.
Yeah, well, yeah. I'm going to, and stay calm, right? Because rudeness is going to trigger a lot of emotion in me. So I want to take a beat, take a breath, step back, be calm, and say, hey, I don't appreciate being spoken to that way. Here's what I want from you, and I'm going to be direct and set that boundary.
I love that, and I imagine it's also helpful to practice some of those direct, assertive statements, maybe in lower stake contexts, right?
Yes.
Being like, I would like the oat milk.
Right. We don't have to kind of accept something just because someone offers it to us, right? We don't need to take the crumbs.
Yes, I love that. We don't need to take the crumbs. Jennifer Hartstein, you never leave any crumbs. Thanks for being with us, and thanks for watching NBC News Daily.